The indictment accuses OTF Vani of having access to the OTF credit cards, and he booked the flights for the killers of Quando Rondo's cousin Lil Pop. He booked their flights to California. He booked their hotels. He booked the rental cars they was gonna use. This is happening. He also unfollowed Lil Durk on Instagram, so read into that as you may. However you want to read into it as you may. Now, being accused of a snitch for most street dudes will be the worst news they will receive.
Believe this, okay? This story has been going absolutely crazy for the past day or so, and as a King Von expert myself, we're just gonna have to get to the bottom of it together, okay? So there's been a whole bunch of things that have been going down, and like let's just get straight in.
Imagine a moment that the world never saw until now. A clip that shows the last breath of a legend, captured just seconds before the headlines went silent. What if the story you heard about King Von was only half the truth? In today's video, we pull back the curtain on that unseen footage, the raw, unfiltered moments that finally put the truth in front of every screen. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew about the night at Monaco Hookah Lounge, to feel the tension of a parking lot showdown, and to witness the final, chilling image that's been leaking through the internet like wildfire. This isn't just a viral video. It's a new chapter in the story of a lyrical force whose life was cut tragically short. Strap in. This is the last footage of King Von alive, and it's about to change everything. In the dim glow of a parking lot at Monaco Hookah Lounge, night clung to the air like a heavy curtain. Two men approached King Von and his crew, voices low and intense. The argument that began with words swiftly escalated into gunfire, the clatter of metal against metal echoing against the city's steel skeleton. The case was closed, the police reports filed, headlines stamped with the finality of a tragic headline. Yet, what if the story we were told was merely the tip of the iceberg? We find ourselves on the edge of a new revelation, never-before-seen footage that claims to capture King Von in his last moments. It has ignited a wave of speculation, a quiet revolution in the narrative that has defined the nights after his death. The footage is raw, unfiltered, and unsettling, but it also carries a weight that demands a fresh look at the events that unfolded in that parking lot. We are called to question everything we believed, to step into the shadows, and to hear the story that has been silenced. King Von's journey from the streets of Chicago to the world's music stage was a story of relentless resilience. Born Davon Bennett, he carved out a space in hip-hop that was as vivid as it was dangerous. His debut album, Welcome to O-Block, was a declaration, a narrative that pulled listeners into a world of concrete, of midnight hustles, and of the ever-present danger that lingered like a ghost in the alleyways. He was a lyrical force, turning personal experience into a mirror held up to the community he came from. Tracks like Crazy Story did more than showcase his flow. They offered a window into a reality many could not see. And that reality was a reality where loyalty and survival were not just themes, but imperatives. His rise was meteoric. Signed to Lil Durk's Only the Family label, he quickly built a dedicated fan base that found authenticity in his raw storytelling. The energy he brought to every performance was palpable. His presence on stage was a reminder of the streets that shaped him. Yet behind the charisma lay a past thick with hardship, an unbroken chain of encounters with the law, and a world where violence could erupt at a moment's notice. Even as his music catalog grew, the shadows of his past clung like a second skin, shaping the narrative of his life and the story that would ultimately unfold in a parking lot outside a nightclub. The initial reports of that fateful night in November 2020 were fragmented, pieced together from eyewitness accounts and official statements. An altercation outside a club in Atlanta spiraled into gunfire, and the headlines bore the weight of a tragedy. King Von was among those shots, a fact that sent shockwaves through the music community and his legion of fans. The details were scattered, a chaotic scene, multiple injuries, a final breath taken in the heat of a moment. Investigators sifted through testimonies that often contradicted each other, and the legal proceedings that followed were labyrinthine, stretched across hearings, arraignments, and courtroom drama that left the public yearning for a more comprehensive account. Enter the new footage. In the early hours of the morning, a shaky cam captures the silence that precedes the explosion. The video cuts to the first shot, a quick flash of a gun's barrel, the sound reverberating through the night. If the footage is authentic, it would provide a visual confirmation of the tension Vaughn had frequently spoken about: hyper-awareness, split-second decisions, loyalty to his crew. It would offer clues about who was involved, the exact positioning of individuals before the bullets cut the air. In a city where narratives are built and torn down by social media, having a tangible piece of evidence could be the difference between myth and truth. In the footage, the first shots appear to come from a man named Tim. He stands there, hands trembling, before the first round of gunfire erupts. The camera lingers on the moment King Von's body reacts, a grim acknowledgement of the violence that had already claimed lives before. The second wave of shots comes later as law enforcement units attempt to intervene, and a tense standoff unfolds. The sequence is jarring. A man runs past the police, gunfire continues, and the night is hijacked by an all-out chaos that is both a crime scene and a flashpoint for questions that have lingered. The significance of this last footage is amplified when viewed through the lens of Von's own words. He had often spoken about the hyper-awareness that comes from growing up in a neighborhood where danger was an omnipresent reality. "It's in your blood," he once said. "You try to do better, but sometimes the streets pull you back in." His internal conflict, balancing the desire for a brighter future against the ingrained cycle of violence, was a recurring theme in his music. This footage may provide a visual echo of that internal struggle. It could demonstrate the dynamics he wrapped into his narratives, the specific circumstances that led to the fatal encounter. The aftermath of Von's death was a tapestry of grief, tributes, and a haunting silence that never quite faded. Tributes poured in from across the industry, highlighting his artistry and the potential that was cut short. Posthumous releases kept his voice alive, further cementing his legacy. But the legal proceedings, the arrest and charging of multiple individuals, remained a tangled web. The pursuit of justice for Von was a significant concern for his family, friends, and fans. The emergence of new evidence, such as this alleged last footage, could potentially have implications for the ongoing legal proceedings. It could provide clarity that has been missing in a case that has become an ever-evolving story. The legal landscape surrounding the incident has been as complex as it is sensitive. Multiple individuals were arrested, and the proceedings stretched over years, punctuated by hearings and developments that tested the public's patience. For those seeking justice, the legal process is designed to establish facts, determine guilt or innocence, and ensure due process. The public's desire for a complete understanding is strong, yet speculation and online commentary must not prejudice the judicial system. The emergence of new evidence could help resolve ambiguities, clarify conflicting accounts, and offer a clearer timeline. The footage, if verified, would have a multifaceted impact. For investigators, it could either support or contradict existing theories.
Involved in this murder for hire. One of the things that caught my eye in their response, opposing Lil Durk's motion to dismiss,
it might identify key individuals, shed light on their actions, and perhaps provide insight into the motivations behind the violence. For the public, the footage offers a visceral, direct connection to the night that ended a life. Seeing King Von in his final moments could evoke a spectrum of emotions: grief, anger, a yearning for truth, or even a quiet, almost reverent understanding of the fragility of life. Ethical considerations loom large when releasing and viewing such sensitive material. The digital age has amplified the reach of potentially inflammatory content, raising questions about privacy, the spread of violent imagery, and the responsibility of platforms and individuals in sharing such material. The desire for information is natural, but it must be balanced with respect for the deceased and for those involved. The dissemination of this footage raises questions about the impact it could have on the families, on the community, and on the ongoing investigations. Ethical responsibility requires a measured approach, sharing evidence only after it has been authenticated, ensuring it is not used to fuel bias, and preserving the integrity of the investigation. The significance of this last footage will ultimately depend on its authenticity, content, and context. It has the potential to reshape our understanding of this tragic event, to illuminate the circumstances, the individuals involved, and perhaps even the underlying factors that contributed to the violence. It could reveal the exact moment that the argument turned to gunfire, the precise actions that led to the fatal bullet, and the subsequent intervention of law enforcement. In a world where the story of a night can be rewritten by a single frame, the footage may represent a pivotal step forward in the pursuit of truth and justice. The world watches, waiting for the evidence to reveal what has been hidden. The quest for truth continues, and this newly surfaced footage could be a significant leap toward closure. Whether it confirms or contradicts what has been reported, it forces us to confront the layers of a narrative that had once seemed settled. We find ourselves on the cusp of a new understanding, ready to see beyond the headline, to look into the last moments of a man who lived life on the edge and who now stands as a testament to the power of truth. The clip that burst onto the internet feels almost cinematic, yet it is rooted in raw reality. In that brief recording, King Von, whose presence in every track carried a narrative weight, stands beside a friend, voice steady, as if the night were a normal night out. The air hums with the distant chatter of the city, lights flickering, the hum of conversation that makes the scene feel alive. Yet for the moment, the camera lingers on Von's face. We sense a shift. The world pauses to catch a glimpse of him before the tragedy that would silence him forever. That fleeting snapshot, though short, has become a catalyst for a new wave of discourse that stretches beyond the music to legal and ethical arenas. Fans on the platform where the video first surfaced immediately began dissecting every frame. The footage is not merely a promotional clip, it is a raw piece of evidence that has the potential to reshape the narrative that has been circulating for months. While the clip itself does not show the violence that occurred later that evening, the context surrounding it is laden with tension. As viewers watch the footage in slow motion, they begin to notice details. The arrangement of bodies, the sudden flare of gunfire, the precise positions of law enforcement officers. These visual cues feed into the speculation that the night was far from accidental. Some commentators assert that the timing and the positions of individuals in the frame align with the narrative of premeditation and betrayal within Von's own circle. The narrative surrounding Von's death has already become a tangled web of conflicting theories. Some voices in the online community point fingers at internal treachery, suggesting a betrayal by someone close to him. Others lean toward a more sinister conspiracy, alleging that the police, in a moment of mistaken identity or miscommunication, escalated a situation that should have been contained. One commentator, after meticulously reviewing the video, claims it is obvious that a particular individual, Tim, was responsible for Von's death. Such assertions resonate because they provide a seemingly concrete narrative amid the uncertainty that has plagued the case. These speculations are not limited to isolated opinions. They proliferate across forums, social media threads, and music platforms. In some corners, users analyze the clip frame by frame, pointing out the moment the police car's rear doors open, the flare of gunfire, the way officers and civilians respond. The footage's rawness fuels theories that the entire incident was a result of a split-second misinterpretation, leading to a chain reaction where the wrong individuals were targeted. Some participants note that the police, having just shot a person with a weapon, might have misidentified the gunman as a threat, prompting a fatal response that set off a broader confrontation. Others reference statements made by Asian Doll, who suggests police involvement, adding another layer of complexity to the already contentious narrative. The authenticity of this footage becomes a pivotal point of discussion. If verified, it could serve as hard evidence that either corroborates or refutes the claims of self-defense that have been filed in court. It might reveal the exact moments that led to the fatal shots, potentially shifting the balance between law enforcement's actions and the alleged self-defense of those present. The legal implications are significant. A video that showcases how the officers and the individuals interacted could sway juries, influence public opinion, and perhaps affect future charges against affiliated parties. The ethical dimension of sharing such a clip cannot be understated. The footage was captured in a public space, yet its dissemination raises questions about privacy, the emotional impact on those involved, and the responsibilities of platforms that host user-generated content. While the public has a legitimate right to information, the content sensitivity demands careful consideration. The video, if shown without context, could re-traumatize the family and close associates of Vaughn. Moreover, its rapid spread online may influence ongoing investigations, potentially contaminating evidence or affecting witnesses' willingness to testify. The controversy is further complicated by the broader feud between the factions associated with Vaughn's label and rival groups. The incident did not happen in isolation. It was the culmination of a series of diss tracks, lyrical confrontations, and real-life escalations. The beef between the two groups had already manifested in violent acts, with a retaliatory murder reported. These tensions have now been magnified by Vaughn's death, adding layers of political and legal complexity that extend beyond the individual case. The situation illustrates how the intersection of music, street culture, and the law can culminate in tragic outcomes. The narrative that fans and critics are trying to piece together is a reminder that the personal stories behind the beats are often fraught with danger.
If you listen to Lil Durk's music, if you listen to Lil Durk's admissions, man, listen.
Amid the speculation and debate, the focus should not lose sight of Vaughn's artistic legacy. His posthumous releases continue to resonate with audiences, and his unreleased catalog spanning over 300 tracks is set to be curated in a new album slated for release. The careful management of these tracks by his representatives speaks to the desire to preserve his voice and story. The upcoming album, featuring songs that Vaughn wrote in less than a year of his life, is a testament to the prolific creative output he achieved in such a short span. Fans who previously felt the connection through his narratives now have new material to keep his influence alive. The legacy of Vaughn, however, is inseparable from the tragedy of his untimely death. The narrative surrounding his demise fuels conversations about loyalty, survival, and the systemic issues that drive artists towards violence. The viral clip forces observers to confront uncomfortable truths about how street life and the music industry collide. While the music continues to echo in clubs and on streaming platforms, the stories behind the beats become a public forum for debate. The fact that Vaughn's death, which happened at the age of 26, has sparked broader discussions on the role of law enforcement in such incidents is indicative of a cultural shift that demands accountability and change. As the footage circulates, it becomes a focal point for diverse theories. Some posit that the scene was a clear example of a defensive response by Vaughn and his friends, who were armed because the police had just opened fire on a suspect. Others argue that the scene shows a premeditated ambush, with one individual taking the lead and the rest following suit. The fact that these narratives arise from the same clip underlines how easily visual information can be reframed depending on one's perspective. It also underscores the fragility of truth in the digital age, where unverified videos can dominate public perception. The legal implications of this video extend beyond the immediate case. The federal charges facing the label's owner illustrate how music, business, and legal frameworks are interlinked. The case demonstrates that a single event can ripple through multiple spheres: the music industry, the community, and the judiciary. The viral clip's release at this juncture may influence upcoming legal strategies, court proceedings, and even future federal investigations. As the footage circulates, it becomes a focal point for diverse theories. Some posit that the scene was a clear example of a defensive response by Vaughn and his friends, who were armed because the police had just opened fire on a suspect. Others argue that the scene shows a premeditated ambush, with one individual taking the lead and the rest following suit. The fact that these narratives arise from the same clip underlines how easily visual information can be reframed depending on one's perspective. It also underscores the fragility of truth in the digital age, where unverified videos can dominate public perception. The legal implications of this video extend beyond the immediate case. The federal charges facing the label's owner illustrate how music, business, and legal frameworks are interlinked. The case demonstrates that a single event can ripple through multiple spheres: the music industry, the community, and the judiciary. The viral clip's release at this juncture may influence upcoming legal strategies, court proceedings, and even future federal investigations. In an environment where a single track can incite violence, the stakes for all parties involved are higher than ever. The ethical responsibility for those who share or analyze the footage is equally high. While the platform hosting the clip may claim it is user-generated, the content's potential to impact an ongoing investigation makes its distribution a matter that extends beyond mere entertainment. A careful balance must be struck between the right to inform and the obligation to protect the dignity of the deceased and their loved ones. Even if the footage offers undeniable insight, it must be contextualized appropriately, ensuring that viewers understand its limitations and the uncertainties that remain. The public's fascination with Vaughn's story is amplified by the continuing release of his unreleased music. The upcoming album will draw from an archive of over 300 tracks, providing a window into the creative process that remained untouched by his life's abrupt end. These releases serve as both a tribute and a cautionary tale, illustrating how artistic expression can outlive the artist yet remain shadowed by the circumstances of their death. The narrative surrounding Vaughn's final moments has become a case study in how public perception is shaped by media representation. The clip, though short, is a powerful symbol that encapsulates the tensions between artistic rivalry, real-world violence, and law enforcement. It pushes audiences to ask difficult questions. Were the authorities' actions justified? Was the violence an inevitable consequence of the feuds that defined Vaughn's musical environment? Or was there a deeper, premeditated plan that went unnoticed until the footage surfaced? These questions keep the discourse alive, fueling both scholarly analysis and casual speculation. The discussion does not end with the clip itself. It extends to the larger context of how communities navigate grief and justice. The footage's viral spread can both illuminate and distort the truth. For those who lost Vaughn, the clip offers a final glimpse, perhaps a comfort in seeing him alive. For others, it serves as a reminder of how quickly a life can be cut short and how the narrative that follows is rarely linear. In closing, the emergence of this last footage is more than a sensational viral moment. It is a fulcrum on which the balance of legal arguments, ethical considerations, and emotional responses pivots. Whether it will become a decisive piece of evidence in the coming court dates remains to be seen. Nonetheless, it has already altered the landscape of public discussion, giving rise to new theories, deepening existing ones, and forcing a reevaluation of how the music industry, law enforcement, and the community intersect. The ongoing debate around King Von's final moments will likely continue, with each new development adding another layer to a narrative that already intertwines artistry, tragedy, and the relentless pursuit of truth. In closing, the emergence of this last footage is more than a sensational viral moment. It is a fulcrum on which the balance of legal arguments, ethical considerations, and emotional responses pivots. Whether it will become a decisive piece of evidence in the coming court dates remains to be seen. Nonetheless, it has already altered the landscape of public discussion, giving rise to new theories, deepening existing ones, and forcing a reevaluation of how the music industry, law enforcement, and the community intersect. The ongoing debate around King Von's final moments will likely continue, with each new development adding another layer to a narrative that already intertwines artistry, tragedy, and the relentless pursuit of truth. In closing, the emergence of this last footage is more than a sensational viral moment. It is a fulcrum on which the balance of legal arguments, ethical considerations, and emotional responses pivots. Whether it will become a decisive piece of evidence in the coming court dates remains to be seen. Nonetheless, it has already altered the landscape of public discussion, giving rise to new theories, deepening existing ones, and forcing a reevaluation of how the music industry, law enforcement, and the community intersect.
The murder of King Von, The affidavit further disclosed that confidential witness 1 knew that Lil Durk placed other.
The ongoing debate around King Von's final moments will likely continue, with each new development adding another layer to a narrative that already intertwines artistry, tragedy, and the relentless pursuit of truth. One of the most immediate consequences of the clip's virality is the pressure it places on the prosecutorial team. With a visual record that shows Von in a clear, unambiguous setting before the violence erupted, the district attorneys can now argue that the officer's use of force was preemptively triggered by an escalating threat. Conversely, defenders might counter that the clip offers only a snapshot, a single moment out of a complex series of interactions, thereby questioning its representativeness of the entire incident. Courts will have to decide whether this evidence satisfies the threshold of materiality or whether it merely illustrates a broader pattern of behavior that is already documented in other affidavits and witness testimonies. Beyond the courtroom, the clip has triggered a wave of community reflection. In neighborhoods that have long suffered from a cycle of retaliation and retribution, the footage serves as a stark reminder that violence is not confined to the grand narratives of the mainstream media, but plays out in everyday streets. Community leaders, some of whom have been instrumental in organizing youth mentorship programs, now face the challenge of translating a moment of loss into a catalyst for change. They have begun to host town halls where the footage is shown in a controlled environment, followed by moderated discussions on conflict resolution, mental health support, and avenues for artists to channel frustration into constructive projects. At the same time, the music industry has responded with a mixture of mourning and strategic action. The record label that houses Von's extensive unreleased catalog is in the process of compiling a posthumous album that will feature not only polished studio tracks but also raw, unreleased recordings that capture his evolution as an artist. This endeavor is fraught with sensitivity. The label must decide how to present these tracks in a way that honors Von's legacy while not exploiting the trauma of his death. Some executives have suggested including a spoken word section that contextualizes the footage, offering fans an inside view of the circumstances that led to the violent encounter, thereby providing closure and education in equal measure. The clip's reach into the digital sphere has also prompted platforms to re-examine their content moderation policies. While the video is technically user-generated, its potential to influence an ongoing legal investigation forces a reconsideration of the platform neutrality argument that many argue for. The company that hosts the video has now initiated a review of its policy on user-submitted content that may have investigative significance. If the platform chooses to take down or at least flag the clip for law enforcement consultation, it may set a precedent for how digital spaces handle content that intersects with real-world legal processes. The decision will have reverberations across the industry, affecting how other artists, law enforcement, and the public interact with viral media. Ethically, the situation is a minefield. The deceased family has expressed a desire to maintain dignity in the public narrative, which stands in tension with the public's hunger for truth. The footage, while potentially a key piece of evidence, also humanizes Von in a way that could either soften public perception of the perpetrators or, conversely, vilify them more harshly. Ethical journalists and content creators face the choice of whether to broadcast the clip in its entirety or to edit it to focus on non-graphic aspects, thereby balancing the duty to inform against the risk of sensationalizing tragedy. These editorial decisions are not merely technical, they carry moral weight that can influence public sentiment, policy discussions, and ultimately the course of justice. The viral clip also serves as a case study for scholars who examine the intersection of music, violence, and societal dynamics. Sociologists point to how the hyper-visualized narrative of an artist's death can amplify pre-existing stereotypes about urban violence. Political scientists analyze how the clip might influence voting patterns in districts that feel the most acutely impacted by such incidents. Psychologists delve into the community's collective trauma, assessing how repeated exposure to graphic content affects resilience and coping mechanisms. By providing a concrete example that is both emotionally resonant and legally significant, the clip opens a dialogue that extends far beyond the immediate circle of fans and law enforcement. In the months that follow, the ripple effect of the footage will likely manifest in policy reforms. Law enforcement agencies may revisit their use of force training protocols, incorporating case studies that illustrate the fine line between necessary intervention and excessive force. Policymakers might push for stronger mandates on data transparency, ensuring that courtrooms can access unedited video evidence without undue delay. At the same time, artists and producers may push for better legal protections around posthumous releases, ensuring that the estate of the deceased receives fair compensation while preserving the integrity of the artistic work. Ultimately, this event underscores the power of a single image or clip to reshape narratives on multiple fronts. The raw footage of King Von's final moments has catalyzed a series of conversations that touch upon legal thresholds, ethical frameworks, community healing, industry practices, and societal attitudes toward violence. It illustrates that when a piece of art, whether a track, a video, or a story, enters the public domain, its impact transcends the original medium. In a world where the lines between entertainment and reality blur with each click and share, the responsibility borne by all parties, lawmakers, artists, platforms, and audiences has never been more pronounced. The narrative will evolve, new evidence will surface, and the questions that once seemed impossible to answer will be re-examined under a new, sharper lens. In the end, the last footage of King Von alive may well be the spark that ignites a broader movement toward transparency, accountability, and compassion. The raw footage of King Von's final moments has catalyzed a series of conversations that touch upon legal thresholds, ethical frameworks, community healing, industry practices, and societal attitudes toward violence. It illustrates that when a piece of art, whether a track, a video, or a story, enters the public domain, its impact transcends the original medium. In a world where the lines between entertainment and reality blur with each click and share, the responsibility borne by all parties, lawmakers, artists, platforms, and audiences has never been more pronounced. The narrative will evolve, new evidence will surface, and the questions that once seemed impossible to answer will be re-examined under a new, sharper lens. In the end, the last footage of King Von alive may well be the spark that ignites a broader movement toward transparency, accountability, and compassion.